Donald Trump has a criminal trial now scheduled in March 25th. That's going to be here before we know it. And it got scheduled when Trump was in New York. We were busy covering the Fani Willis hearing. And on the same day that she testified, Trump showed up in Juan Mercan's courtroom and they scheduled the trial. And we're going to go through the X script thread, courtesy of Inner City Press, to see what happened in that courtroom, because Trump is apparently going to be seated in a 6-week trial in person every day starting on March 25th. Kind of a problem because he's got some other things to do, you know, like campaigning for 2024. But Juan Mercan wants to anchor him down in a courtroom. All of the other trials are now a little bit in disarray. The Chutkan decision out of January 6th in DC, that one's on appeal. SCOTUS might get rid of it. SIPA and classified information documents are a problem in Florida. That's delaying that trial. Fani Willis and Nathan Wade just got busted indicting each other in their judicial robes and other things. That case is probably going to be on delay. So they just accelerated the criminal case in New York, hoping that Trump will be a felon before people go and vote. And so the New York Times had some background on this, and we also have the actual X script that we're going to get into. But here's some background on this. They tell us that on Thursday, Judge Juan Mercan from New York, he ensured that Trump will be in trial March 25th, and it's a criminal case. Juan Mercan rejected Trump's bid to throw out DA Alvin Bragg's criminal charges. This all involves the Stormy Daniels hush money payments. Michael Cohen's going to be a key witness. Trial is scheduled for next month, and it's going to be the first prosecution of an American president in American history. A criminal prosecution for Stormy Daniels stuff. Now, the ruling is a victory for Bragg. Bragg says he was pleased by the judge, denied the defense motions. We're going to see the judge just came out, denied everything. His decision is going to draw some eyes to this case, obviously. And Trump's federal case in the January 6th case was the first on the docket, but now that all got booted out, and Manhattan is now up next. And so let's take a look at what actually took place in court. We're going over to Inner City Press. This is Matthew Russell Lee reporting. Does great work. I really encourage you to follow him, buy his audiobooks, and subscribe to his stuff. But he was there in court while Trump was there. He says, "We are now in the state of New York versus Trump in the courtroom. Cops are everywhere. New York PD roaming all over the place." But Matthew Russell Lee made it inside. After multiple security screenings, boom, he's ready to go and to live tweet their proceedings. The time is 9:30 a.m. Trump enters the courtroom looking sharp as can be, a red tie. He sits at the defense table and Judge Juan Mercan is still on the bench, but it's all coming together. And then the proceeding starts. All rise. Everybody stands up. Please be seated. We get right down to business. Judge Juan Mercan's reviewing the different filings and he says, all right, good morning, everybody. First order of business. Trump's motions to dismiss are denied, and says, you know, since these are denied, this case is happening. We're going to trial. Judge Mercan admits that he colluded with Judge Chutkan. He says, I spoke with Judge Chutkan over the weekend, and as you know, there are a lot of moving parts here. So at this point, I can tell you that we will plan for jury selection to start on March 25th. I remember Super Tuesday is on March 5th, and we've got other primaries stacked around until we get to the nominating convention and the Republican convention. So the trial will be happening, and there will be other primaries taking place. Trump is going to be anchored down in trial starting on March 25th. So original motions rejected. Thanks for playing. See you in trial. Trump's lawyer stands up. He says, Your Honor, what on earth? May I be heard? Juan Mercan, the judge, he says, sure. Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche. He says, Your Honor, this is a little bit strange. I mean, we just came out here. We filed our motions. You just got up here. You said you literally talked to Judge Chutkan in the federal case in DC on the January 6th case. So you say you talked to Judge Chutkan. Then you just announced the March 25th trial. I think this is ridiculous. This is a great injustice. We are here to prepare for this case, but you scheduling a trial just over 30 days from now is ridiculous. He says, well, you can make a record if you'd like. Feel free to talk. Go ahead, Mr. Lawyer. Trump's attorney says, Your Honor, it's a completely different landscape now. Okay, when we were back here, this was one of the first cases that came through. Remember, this indictment was a while back. He said, it's a completely different landscape now. When we were here some time ago, we were here on one case, but now President Trump has been indicted on 3 other cases. Says there are literally thousands of pages of discovery here, and we're faced with a compressed and expedited schedule. And Judge Chutkan, in her case, there's been briefs to the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. We're now appealing to the Supreme Court. And so there's a lot going on. And we also just finished with Letitia James's case, the New York AG. So we had no idea it was going to be as long as that trial was. We literally just finished that. We have that Engeron decision coming up. And President Trump is going to have to appeal that one. Okay, $450 million Engeron areola the NIP. We got to appeal that. So we wanted to come before you today, Your Honor, and just tell you, this is impossible. There's no way we're going to be ready for trial trial on March 25th. We got all this other stuff going on, and it's all already been scheduled. And says until the week before last, the Judge Chutkan case was still on the docket. So we were going to be back there on March for that trial, and Judge Mercan cuts him off. And there was a motion was brought because the prosecutor had the audacity to file for discovery, which is crazy. Okay, so judge is like, this case is going to be bad, my friends. I can already see it. So let's just break down what I think happened right here in this one tweet, 1X, courtesy of Inner City Press. So Chutkan's case was on the docket. Remember that Jack Smith was trying to keep the case on track and was filing stuff, and those were illegal filings because the case was on appeal. A defendant cannot be in two places at the same time, at the lower level court and at the Court of Appeals. So Trump was at the higher level court. Jack Smith kept filing motions, and that was obviously illegal. In fact, even Judge Chutkan came out and scolded him for that, kind of, and said, yeah, okay, don't file it. So Juan, the judge, is saying, and there was a motion brought because the prosecutor had the audacity to file for discovery. Okay, if not clear, that was sarcasm. So in other words, Jack Smith was in the right. So you cut Jack Smith off because you guys were wrong, right, in that trial. So this judge, in other words, is already geared up to destroy the defense. Just get ready for this. I think they're going to try to really convict him here. Juan says, you don't have a trial date in Florida. You don't have a trial date in Georgia. He says, but don't cut me off, says the judge. Todd Blanche says, but don't cut me off. When you asked me last week if he could be excused from today's proceeding today, I said no, but I did give him the opportunity to appear virtually today so Trump could also attend his case in Georgia. Yeah, but Your Honor, but when you just announced the trial date, when you just come out here and say it's March, you didn't even give me an opportunity to explain what the defense position is in. I've got all this other stuff going on for Trump. He's got this and this and this and this. You have to allow me to explain so we can properly prepare. I have to be prepared for my client. So can you let me talk? He says, well, I'll let you talk if you have something new to say. Your Honor, he says, the May 20th trial date in Florida, that's the classified documents case. He said, that's firm. We have a SIPA litigation there. Okay, we're fighting over classified documents. So we're going to ask to move the May 20th date. But the special counsel's office, as recently as last week, said they think it's going forward. So if we're going on May 20th, he says, okay, well, May 20th, it's not going to overlap. We're here on March 25th, 6 weeks. You'll be done. Then you can go prepare for your May trial. He says they won't overlap. He says, Your Honor, we're going to start picking a jury on March 25th. That's going to take a week to pick our jury. Then trial is going to be until the 3rd week of May. Trump's going to be here, and we can't have him here. He's not preparing for another very important trial in Florida. Now, this is an unconditional violation. It's easily fixed, and there's a pending application at the Superior Court or the Supreme Court. So we've got all of this stuff going on. And says also the trial in DC, the J6 trial, this is Trump's lawyer arguing. He says the DC trial for the January 6th insurrection case, that's also likely going to go in June, or that's going to happen in July. So we're going to be back here in DC as well. And you say that we don't know, and I very much agree with that. Like, these dates are all moving around. Now, after March 1st, though, we're going to have some clarity on this. If the Supreme Court grants a stay on Chutkan's immunity issue, that trial will be pushed into later in the year. And also, Judge, in addition to all this, we are also in the middle of the primary season. Now, as it stands right now, starting on March 1st through the time we expect this trial to end, if we start on, there are 42 primaries and caucuses, says Trump's lawyer. You want us to go to trial? In the meantime, we're going through 42 primaries and caucuses, and you want Trump to prepare for trial for all this? Your Honor, this is a manifest injustice. We can't be prepared for this. You just came in and just reiterated. Okay. And he says, Judge, let me hear from the people, aka Bragg, aka the government, the people. It's the government, bureaucracy. Give me a break, the people. From Bragg's government bureaucracy. So Bragg's lawyer, okay, not even Bragg, he might be sitting on the bench, where Tishy was sitting, I don't know, but says, Your Honor, there's a pattern of using the pendency, this is the government, of each proceeding to try to delay accountability in any proceeding. They're always trying to do this. And he says, Trump's lawyer, Mr. Blanche, he wrote to the people, not filed with the court, but he said this. He said, if we start the trial on March 25th, although still disruptive to the campaign, there are few primaries before late April. So we already accommodated them. And I think that's the end of it. So Bragg's lawyer, and so basically the judge wraps this up. I think this is the final sentence from Inner City Press. So the judge says there are few primaries before late April. So we already accommodated the Trump campaign, and trial is scheduled on March 25th. So Trump is going to be in trial, my friends, absent any appeals or stays or delayed. It is scheduled. And in fact, this is what MSNBC said. They're about as giddy as can be. They're very much wanting a criminal conviction before the election so that they can try to use that to do something, whether that is removing him off the ballots, whether it's saying Trump is now a convicted felon, so he's disqualified, maybe not insurrection anymore, but it's a felon, okay, whatever that means. You remove him off the ballot, convince the RNC, or if it's just a political cudgel, right, to just say, can you believe he's now convicted after the E. Jean Carroll Carroll case, they just said Trump is an assaulter. Remember how they just used that talking point? So they just want that. He's a convicted felon. He's a convicted felon. And they're very excited about getting that anchored in there. This is what MSNBC sounded like when they were outside the courtroom.
So Yasmin, what else did we learn from today's hearing?
I tell you, the trial got up and going, or the hearing, I should say, got up and going around 9:30 this morning. By 9:35, 9:40, Judge Marchand had said motion denied. And the motion to dismiss the case by the former president and his attorneys was, in fact, denied. And then a couple lines later, a couple minutes later, he said March 25th, he was setting the date for the trial. The former president's attorney, Todd Blanche, speaking a lot about how he felt as if this was unfair, right? He made the argument that we were in the throes of the primary season. The former president had to be out on the trail as he was running for re-election as president of the United States. And that didn't necessarily land well, I'd say, with the judge guys. I will also say,
obviously,
the prosecution making the argument that this date was better than any other date because no other date had been set. There had been coordination, the judge said, between both him and Judge Chutkan down in D.C., and she had reiterated to him that no date had been set for the D.C. case. Hence why March 25th seemed like it was the best date to be having this case move forward. I will say what also I found interesting was the questions when it came to the jury selection, right? They had to submit both questions for jury selection, both prosecution and defense. And there was a lot of back and forth on this. Some of these questions that were pulled from the E. Jean Carroll case. And much of it was getting to the heart of political affiliation of these jurors, right? Some of the questions that were being asked essentially of these jurors, or that will potentially be asked of these jurors, are what is your political affiliation? Where do you get your news from, for instance? Are you getting it from CNN? Are you getting it from MSNBC? Are you getting it from the New York Times? At one
They get it from MSNBC, okay? It's New York.
Point, the prosecution asked that they add, for instance, to that, are you watching kind of more far-right leaning media outlets? And Todd Blanche came back on that. They also wanted to see if there was any kind of affiliation with any far-right groups.
Far-right wingers. So, my friends, it's going to be a bloodbath in this courtroom. Just get prepared for it. Just start expecting it. It's not going to be good. It's New York. It's the same people as Engoron. It's the same people as E. Jean Carroll. It's going to be a bloodbath, and they are accelerating this because they are failing on all the other fronts, okay? They're losing their butts on all the other trials. So they pulled out the old Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen garbage from years ago because they cannot let this guy win. They are so deranged that they'll do anything, including making up old charges. So we're going to be here continuing to cover this. Mark your calendars. It sounds like this one is hard in there based on what we heard from Juan Merchan. And he is the new Judge Chutkan, right? He was colluding with Judge Chutkan, and now he's going to follow her. She gave him a pep talk. You can do it, Juan. Save American democracy. And she sends that back over to him. He's like, yeah. So mark your calendars. Don't forget to subscribe wherever it is you're watching this. Thank you for liking this. We're going to cover this thing in depth and see what is inside. I do not know if it's going to be televised. My guess is probably not after what happened in Fanny's case, but we'll see what it looks like. My friends, don't forget to check out some of the links down in the description below. We've got watcherlodge.com. We've got great events coming up. Food Sovereignty Workshop coming up this week. Zen Wellness coming up next week. All free. Go to Watcher Lodge, sign up and join us because we have a lot of work to do. We're going to be here as we continue to cover this and more. Thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you back here on the next one.